Hi, and welcome back. In this lecture, we're going to talk about preventive and predictive maintenance. The first question you need to ask is whether you're going to do maintenance in-house or outsource your maintenance. Most organizations, I should say the majority of organizations, contract out part of their service even if they make the decision to do some service in-house. There's tremendous benefits to doing your own internal preventive maintenance, but there's also tremendous costs associated with entering into that business, which is really a complete another division of your organization. When we think about predictive and preventive maintenance, we're talking about, from an objective perspective, trying to figure out how to maximize the availability and minimize the costs and decrease the number of critical vehicle failures that occur in your system. From a predictive perspective, it's the ability to determine in advance from observation what will need to take place, and often that means replacing parts on a scheduled time frame, but also by doing your daily preventive type maintenance, you can actually identify potentially parts that may need to be replaced. From a prevention perspective, prevention can be based on mileage, it can be based on time periods or engine hours, and it's different with different organizations. And again, there's not much research specifically for ambulances that's published that says exactly what the best practices are. But there's tremendous opportunity in trying to learn that in your organization. And there are many organizations that have it internally, but there's just not a way to share that currently. In terms of thinking about cost, one of the benchmarks or one of the indicators that's utilized quite often is the cost per mile, to look at how well you're doing in terms of your preventive maintenance programs. Also, people look at the cost per hour or cumulative cost to date of a given vehicle as potential indicators. Again, a benchmark that you may want to put out there, this comes from the National Fleet Management Association, is about 30% of the time is often spent on, with vehicles in preventive maintenance or repair, and that's for vehicles that operate in the conditions we're talking about with an emergency service vehicle. When you think about predictive maintenance programs, you want to actually track that in terms of identification numbers. It has nothing to do necessarily with what the ambulance is called, but every vehicle needs to have a number. And it's interesting to me that many organizations quabble about this. Some are more concerned with putting the number on the ambulance that will be seen by what it's called on the radio in terms of dispatch than they are about the maintenance of the vehicle. The number on the vehicle really serves the main purpose of identifying that vehicle and quickly in terms of managing it from a fleet perspective, much more so than anything else. In an aggressive, modern, state-of-the-art EMS system today, it's kind of redundant, or that's not the word I'm looking for. It's not that beneficial to have a number on the ambulance, simply because the numbers don't correspond usually with where the vehicle's located over the long term, because vehicles, again, if you go back to the very first lecture we had about deployment and we looked at how vehicles move around, those vehicles move a lot. So it's not like a number on a fire service vehicle that would qualify it or quantify it to a given zone or area, geographical location. That may not be the case in an EMS service, especially one that has some aspect of dynamic deployment, which most of the people that are listening to this lecture actually have said that they do have either a hybrid or a dynamic style deployment system. Vehicle maintenance reporting systems are important to have something in place to actually track this, so you can actually see what's taking place, so that you know when things are coming about in terms of time for maintenance to take place. You want to track things like reasons for repair and maintenance, like breakdowns. You want to track things like consumption of fuel, oil, have a place for the driver to report something and actually put that again in your fleet software in some way. And again, if you're detached, if you're working with the county government's providing that fleet maintenance service, there may not be an easy access for the driver to actually report what's taking place and that end up in a data set. So ideally, you have a vehicle maintenance reporting system that would facilitate that. Routine inspections, lubrications, pre-delivery, the specific maintenance that takes place in terms of preventative actions, rework, road calls, or routine repairs that are done. All of those things you'd like to be able to track them. You want to be proactive in terms of scheduling, and proactive preventive maintenance is that. Reactive preventive maintenance is things that comes up on occasion that you want to actually do. Like, for example, you notice a hose or you notice a belt that is worn. Reactive preventive maintenance would be that you step in and actually make a change to that and actually have a new belt or hose put in place to make sure you don't have a failure. Develop an effective preventive maintenance plan or program. You want to make sure there's checklists of things that are done on a routine basis. You've got to think about the checklist. You probably want daily, weekly, and monthly checklists. You want intervals and frequency. You want to think about that. You want to think about driver inspections and complaints, where those things can be reported. You want to think about training people. This is often a forgotten or missed component. People aren't trained in how to actually conduct this piece of the preventive maintenance program. You usually have employees look at certain things on a daily basis, but they may never be trained how to do that. One of the articles I've included actually talks a bit about that and was published with that intention in mind. And then again, the scheduling and the recording, you've got to think about that. Again, here's a wide there's a wide array of things you want to think about in terms of having on a checklist. You see some of those things here. Some are for daily, some are weekly, and some monthly parts of the preventive maintenance program. And they may vary a little bit from system to system depending on what you have done. For example, you may have your employees do a more in-depth daily checklist if you don't have the ability to get the vehicle into a mechanic on a routine basis, say weekly or monthly, to actually do other aspects of the checklist. Again, the line of defense. Your driver is the first line of defense. You want your operators to be able to think about the safety items of the vehicle, to think about the drivability of the vehicle, think about the body, maintaining it, make sure it's clean and looks nice. The aesthetics, is important, and the vehicle body will hold up much longer if they take care of it on the outside. In terms of miscellaneous, the heater, the radios, the seats, those sorts of things, making sure that that they're repaired on a routine basis. Tom Hilson actually published an article. There's a typo there. That should be Hilson. And I've actually included it. It's actually entitled Ambulance Anatomy and Physiology. And he talks a little bit about things that you should make sure that your employees know in terms of doing this first line of defense driver check. In terms of thinking about the intervals, go to the manufacturer's recommendations. Go to the ambulance vendor specifications for other aspects. And then you have to think about the severity of the duty. If you're working in situations where your ambulances are off-road a lot, then definitely it's going to require a closer inspection of some of the things related to the drive chain and things that that could be damaged from that off-road use. In terms of the future of preventive maintenance, this is really developing really quickly. Things like OnStar have the ability now. You can buy it in your personal vehicles to inform you when it's time for preventive maintenance to take place. Those systems actually do exist, and you're actually seeing apps develop for computers and iPhones and Android phones that actually will support better preventive maintenance and fleet management. So those are things that you'll probably see develop in the next year or so that really benefit you in terms of trying to have the most beneficial, efficient preventive maintenance program that you can. There's a couple things in terms of record keeping. I've got 2 links here for a couple different systems for you to look at. These are actually in the portal as well. But I would ask that you just take a quick look at the complexity of the software that exists. Often I hear people say, well, we'll develop our own in-house program. And that may be okay in a very, very small program. But once you get to the point of 4, 5, 6 vehicles, there's enough taking place in terms of that routine schedule. And there's so many things built in terms of the benefits that it's probably worthwhile to think about having a formal fleet management or preventive maintenance software program. So take a look at these and see what you think of these programs. This is just a couple of the vendors that are out there that I'm aware of that have pretty good systems. Well, we'll stop there and we'll pick up in the next lecture.